Come on. There we go. Oh, good morning, guys. Gals, how are we doing today?
Great.
Good.
Best day ever.
Best
Yeah.
day ever is right. Jared, how are you today, sir?
Oh, man, having a wonderful week. Had an awesome time at SQL Saturday Minneapolis last weekend, and found the best feature in SSMS 21 this week, which is that it supports wingdings. That's about my week in a nutshell.
I'm sorry. SSMS supports Windings?
Yeah. Yep. Yep. You can
Amazing.
run your entire SSMS in the wingdings font. I found it out.
No, like on
You know,
purpose or like on accident?
More or less, it was trying to check out some of the new features in SSMS 21,
Yeah.
and like most of the stuff is like UI based. So they're like, oh yeah, here's a list of fonts that actually make sense to use in this product. But then there's one thing I just posted a video on it this week that is presenter mode. So anybody who does presenting with SSMS 21, check out the video.
Ooh.
But the font selection that they give you for presenter mode is just freeform text in an XML structure. So I had to test, does it support wingdings? And turns out it does.
Yeah. Oh, that's
That
fantastic.
actually is pretty awesome. I feel like I gotta try that out. I have a dyslexic font that I found at a like a camp, and they were using it for their slides for some of the kids, and it was like, I'm gonna start using that for all my presentations. But if I could use it in SSMS, double
What
win.
is a dyslexic font? Is it write it
basically-
backwards or like?
Well, it's so that if you have dyslexia, you can read it. So the letters are different enough where it kind of helps your brain actually read the letters in order.
Really? Okay,
Yeah, pretty cool.
that's pretty cool. I had no idea that there was a dyslexic font out there.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Well,
What
good
we're
morning
here
to you,
for,
Curtis. How are
random
you
moment.
today, sir?
I'm living the dream.
Yeah.
I have some fun problems to try to figure out today, so I'm excited.
That's great.
Yeah.
And you're a new father, so how is sleep?
Hmm.
Good. We're fortunate. I think.
Okay. All right.
He doesn't nap, but he does sleep through the night pretty well right now. So we're
All right.
taking the trade-off.
Yeah.
We'll take it.
Yeah.
So it's good. Yeah, I get a little loopy at times. Come 4 or 5 p.m. though, I do get a little wild. Any client calls at 4 or 5 p.m. The client's like, "Are you okay?" So,
Like, I'm hanging in there, man.
yeah.
Like, I'm
Oh,
on my 10th cup of coffee. I don't
Yeah.
think you want to know. Yeah.
yeah. Well, it's a little early, but you could always try some Neuro gum with some L-theanine, B vitamins, along with that caffeine to get you that up and going without the jitters. So,
Not a sponsor.
not a sponsored ad. This is just.
Thanks, Chris. I'll think about it this week.
And you could enter promo code KratosBI to learn that there is no promo code. So you'll save nothing if you do that. It will say, does not recognize that promo code at checkout.
Worth a shot, though. You never know.
Yeah. Maybe someone will watch and go, we'll put in a Kratos BI. Ha ha ha. Those 10 people on the stream will get a discount if they buy. Good to see everyone in the chat as well. Shabnan, you are 100% my favorite, Shabnan. Good to see you. Fantastic to have you here. Good to hear that, Donald, your bone is healing. I don't know exactly.
His wife.
What's that? Oh, his wife. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I was like,
very exciting.
Is this a surgery accident?
Yeah, I'll let him share if he wants to.
Okay,
but
all right.
Yeah. Basically,
well,
recovery
whatever.
is going well. Yeah, so I'm very excited
Recovery is
to hear
going
that.
well. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. Good.
Yeah.
Good. Yes. And I'm glad to hear that Andy's child is sleeping through the night. That's wonderful as well. What are you congratulating
first
me
one.
about? Yeah, I got nothing. Aaron's here. Boy, the whole crew is here. Mark, Jason,
Kevin.
Kevin, holy cow.
He doesn't want to join us though. We're not cool enough this morning yet for him.
Yeah, we are definitely not cool enough for Kevin. That is true. Good to see everyone. Good to see everybody. Prachi's here too. Prachi, I don't know if you missed last week if you weren't on. Prachi showed us how you could use translytical apps in like an hour to build a feedback, which is pretty impressive. Excited to see that. So if you are interested, go check the replay, and we might actually have Prachi come back. She was promoting some additional features and functionality that she's building in, so we might have her come back to show us that stuff too. So good deal, good deal. Now, before we dive into it, because we're about to go super deep into like DevOps and some really advanced topics here. And yeah, to get our brains like kind of prepped and ready for this stuff, let's all shake it out. Yeah, like like deep sighs, deep breaths. Yeah, stretch. I have a little joke for you. I've been telling it a lot. Maybe I told it last week. Why did PowerPoint cross the road?
I'm
Why?
scared.
To get to the next slide.
Ah,
Oh man.
Oh gosh.
That's something, Chris. That is something.
Yes. Oh, excited about that one.
Not all of us have
all
the
right.
neuro gum, Chris.
Yeah,
We're not ready yet.
Yes. Not necessarily an endorsement for the NeuroGum, but NeuroGum.
Got my coffee. It'll
There you go.
be caught up in a bit.
All right. So before we dive into the DevOps stuff, Curtis, can you kind of like frame this up and tell us why the heck did you even take on this like building out all this crazy stuff that you did?
yeah. I guess a good use case here, right, is if let's say your team is growing, and like if we think specifically with semantic modeling, imagine 3 or 4 engineers all trying to edit the same model, and how overwhelming that can be. A lot of conflicts, things like that. So you can start to see where you have some growing pains when you want to move fast. And the same thing with like not only that, but imagine your team spread across the other world, around the world, not the other world. Imagine your whole team spread around the world, and if you get a pull request for change, and the next day you're reviewing that pull request all to send back for just a small minor change, and then you've wasted a day on iteration. So that's really where it comes with, like, if your team is growing and you've got, honestly, at some point, if you get 2 engineers in the same spot, it starts to become relevant to like, okay, maybe we start to think about, let's get more advanced, in what we do when we're making changes. And that's not discounting like the built-in stuff with the Fabric deployment pipelines. There are plenty of great use cases for that and when to take advantage of those. But every now and then you'll find a team and like they're ready for it. Let's get them in Azure DevOps. Let's get the pipelines built. Let's get all these things integrated so we can move fast and stay safe as well. And then, if the last thing I'll say on that is if your semantic model is starting to get the adoption, and then if it's down for a couple minutes or an hour, even more so, you're ready for some good unit testing, some deployment checks, things like that. The last thing I want to do is make a change to a model right before an earnings call, which I've done before, or before a big review, and you've doubled the sales numbers, or the sales numbers have just gone away because of some dumb join you did, right? So those are kind of where the use cases come in, is where if you just want to sleep at night, really, and you want to make sure that it's all safe and you can deploy correctly.
Awesome. All right. So that's just a prelude as to some of the stuff we're going to be getting into. Curtis, for people who are starting and we're about to show them this stuff. What skills or what tools are we going to be using to leverage it to do these things?
So the first one is the tried and true tabular editor, but the command line. So if you haven't dealt with that before, it is very useful. It's very helpful. There are so many scripts out there that are open source for tabular editor scripting in the command line. We'll be doing some YAML. So in Azure DevOps, it'll read a YAML file. And then I've got some Python in here as well. And then like one little PowerShell script. And that's it. Essentially, that's it. But some Python packages, which I'll show as well. And then the last thing is being familiar with the Azure DevOps kind of UI. If you've ever dealt with the Azure DevOps pipelines and the capabilities there, and like branch policies as well is kind of a big time saver. So I think I answered your question, Chris. But being able to, those are the tools we'll use.
Awesome. I'm going to post some links to some of those tools here in the chat. I'm going to admit, now this is I'm about to go a little off topic here, but
What? We never go off topic.
Yeah.
I switched to having ChatGPT be my default search engine, and now I hate it because I just want to search. I don't always want like
An
an
answer.
LLM response. I'm like, tabular editor. Tabular editor is blah 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 blah. I'm like, oh my god, I just want a link to like. It's like having a chatty Cathy doll. Like when you're trying to get a link for information, just show me the link. So
show me the money.
Yeah. We'll be moving away from that shortly. So, all right, let's head over to Curtis's screen. Oh my!
All right.
There we go.
Okay, so I built a lovely graphic for you guys. So please do not critique my layout, but I did my best in Lucid Charts. So, all right, when we think about this, we were kind of touching on it earlier, like what, to me, what is for good semantic modeling, like pipelines and CI/CD? Well, the first one is, it's got to be automated, scheduled, and manual. Naturally, as humans, we want everything. So we want to be able to run it automated, like via pull request if it gets triggered, scheduled. Maybe you've got some unit tests you want to run, and then manual too. When you're testing and building, you just want to be able to click a button and run it. And then with these models, shout out to Tabular Editor. You definitely need to take advantage of that with the command line. It saves you so much time. There's a ton of scripts out there. And then two, it's Friday. So sometimes I could say, you know what? I don't care that BPA failed. I'm going to deploy anyways. So I want an option to manually override. Just kidding. It's a bad joke. But where you do want to use it is, let's say you're in the middle of an incident. Like I gave those examples of making deployments and the model is felt and everybody can tell that it's wrong and you need to quickly stop the bleeding. So you want that ability for certain people in the organization to say, like, you know what, we need to deploy, we need to get this incident fixed. Then you need to actually deploy it. So that's that one. And then once I've deployed, I want to be able to say, like, okay, did I add a new table or a new column? I need a refresh. In this case, we're using an import mode, but I need to refresh the model. And then I also want to run some validations. And those kind of validations to me are high level, like DAX queries on the model, where I say, like, hey, do I still have an accurate sales number? Things like that. And then Azure DevOps has a really neat testing suite. So we want to integrate these tests that we've run with that, so you have a good analytical view of it all. And then last but not least, we want to be able to roll back if all else fails. So we're really starting to push some like classic software development practices in the BI space, which is fun for me to think about, because naturally, I think all organizations start as like business users building Power BI desktop model, open up Power BI desktop and building models. And slowly, as the teams grow, you get closer to this more software development practice. So,
yeah, I think it's an evolution where all of a sudden you need more engineering, right? Like, because you go from, okay, I've got an Excel spreadsheet and I look at it, to, okay, I've got an Excel spreadsheet and 3 people look at it. to, okay, I'm starting to do a Power BI report and I got a handful of people looking at it. And then all of a sudden you have an Excel spreadsheet report and there's 100 or 1,000 or 3,000 people, or they're making multi-million-dollar decisions off of your what's
Yeah.
in your Power BI report. And holy crap, if that's not right, like people can really do good or bad things, right? Like you don't want to be wrong and have executives go, you know what, it's time for layoffs. That's a bad thing, right? So I think as you start to grow and scale, suddenly the topic becomes, how do we put more engineering into this? Jared, Christina, have you guys been through this journey? And at what point in time do you guys think it makes sense for an organization to go from, hey, I just manage my stuff, like I'm a Power BI dev, to like, all right, I'm gonna put some more engineering into this.
For me, the encouragement is look ahead and find it before you run into that big production issue that usually is what makes organizations be like, this happened because for engineering tools and practices, we didn't really have the right things in place. And that's why this happened. Now, maybe we should do it. If you see yourself at risk of doing that, either from manual deploying of scripts, or even as soon as you go from one employee supporting this to two employees supporting this, have those considerations now, because it's easier to set those processes early and then just get people on board with it than waiting until after the big production issue happened. And then people want to talk about it, but they want to talk about it with very elevated voices.
Yeah. Well, I will say that's when you'll get funding for this, but
Yeah.
yeah. Christina, any thoughts on your side as to how and when to approach this?
I typically recommend to people the vacation test. Could I go on vacation? If the answer is no, then you need a better process. So your entire system should not depend on you to be there for a week, right? If it can live on its own for a week, changes that need to be pushed out that only you can do right now, if that happens, and it doesn't need to be within your vacation time, right? Like if it can wait 2 weeks, you're probably okay, right? Because you're not working on something that's mission critical. But when you can no longer go on vacation is a really good barometer of, I need a backup. I need somebody to be able to make these changes, and I need tests in place, like Curtis called out, to make sure that when they make changes, it does the test that I do by myself anyway.
I love it. I love it. All right, Curtis, sorry to interrupt and inject there. I know you're on a good roll here, so.
I love it. So now we're in Azure DevOps. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to trigger it manually. So in this demo, because all demos go perfectly well, what we're going to do is we are going to, we're going to build the model. We're going to run BPA on it. BPA is going to fail. So I'll override it. And then we'll deploy. The post-deployment will fail because it'll realize I did something wrong. And then it will recover all in one pipeline. So here we go. The fun stuff. I'm going to, if you notice too, pipelines with the YAML files, you have the ability to parameterize, if I said that word correctly. So you can plug it in. So ideally too, this code is it's built to be, organizationally agnostic, tenant agnostic, all of that. You just got to plug and play with it to build in the right parameters to, to match what you're doing. So I give myself a little notes here. It's Fabric Friday. Woo! And then also too, I do some optional, check marks if you want to run or deploy or anything like that. Because the goal is too, right? You do find the balance like we're talking about. Sometimes you don't need all 80 steps when you first start. Sometimes you just need the ability to deploy automatically, versus having to go into Tabular Editor or Power BI Desktop and publish. You just want that ability to kind of run it through the system. So I'm going to hit run. All in all, this will take about 7 or 8 minutes. But we'll kind of walk through the steps of what it's doing in here. And so you notice these different jobs as well. And this is what's breaking it up. So this should fail. Then I'll use this to override it. Then we'll deploy. We'll do some post-deployment steps, and we will recover. One of the nice things is here is while this is running, one of the things that I know is popular, right, is BPA. And many people do run BPA via the command line, via tabular editor command line. What I haven't seen a lot of is publishing those BPA results to the Azure DevOps test suite. And so it's not very popular, but it's already built in natively in the command line. If you notice, there's the -trx, and this produces a VS test file. And so with that file, you can publish the results. So I just wanted to call that out, that this is something I honestly didn't know about it until recently. I had historically written some very terrible Python to parse the output to do that. And, naturally someone's already solved the problem. And so a lot better than I did. So
it's funny how, oh, did you notice the one line in the obscure blog that,
yeah.
that does exactly what you wanted to do, right? Like,
yeah. So this will run it, right? It creates that file after the BPA run, and then you can use what's called published test results in your pipeline. You combine those two and you're off to the races. So we'll see if it's gotten anywhere since I've done it. So we'll go in here. Oh, and there we go. So it ran BPA. We got the classic BPA failures, and it published the test results. So now with that integration, I now have this tab right here. I go to test, and here you go. I can see all my results. And I've got, per each rule, I've got the violations. And this is good.
Holy cow. Can I go back and look at every past run and see what violations occurred? So like if let's say it's of the same 5 all of the time, and or I was accustomed to seeing 0, and now all of a sudden I see there's 5. Can I go back and see like when we introduced? Oh, look at that.
You sure can. And so now I can click into each results. But now that you're in Azure DevOps, you can integrate with your stories. You can create a bug and you can say, hey, developer, come on. What are you doing? Fix this. A classic example that haunted me was one of the models I was working on had a space at the end of the column name, and it haunted me forever. And it was so hard to get it out. We finally fixed it, but that stuff just ideally you prevent with this before you go to production. So,
hey, actually, Curtis, that leads to a question that Prachi has asked. She asked, for organizations looking to manage their software development lifecycle, how do you decide whether to use Azure DevOps or GitHub? What factors should influence this choice?
I'm biased where I just use Azure DevOps. I'm curious if you guys have some good answers here, but natively with Azure DevOps, there's a lot of this stuff that integrates pretty well with the Microsoft ecosystem. Not to say GitHub doesn't, and even too, there's abilities too where this can work really well with GitHub repositories. I mean, I'm only utilizing repositories from DevOps, but you can integrate with GitHub as well. But curious if you guys have some thoughts on it.
So I'm going to like the integration with all the capabilities that are inside of Azure DevOps when it comes to tracking bugs, stories, all of that additional stuff is why I have a bias towards that. The integration seems really tight. I honestly, the only time I ever go the other path is when the organization already has that as their standard. And then it's like, okay, well, okay, I guess type of situation, right?
Yeah, it's better to have one code base than 2. But if you have none, then start with ADO, kind of like Kevin said. They're always going to release new features there first.
Yeah.
So it gets more attention, which is a good thing.
Yep. Awesome. All right. Sorry, Curtis, back to your screen.
No worries. So I went ahead for the sake of time and manually deployed it. And you notice I left a note and I said, it's Friday, deploy, deploy, deploy. So I'm an engineer. I am ready for the weekend. I'm saying, I should have put in YOLO to bring back.
Yeah, I
an
was
old-
just thinking that.
Yeah.
The
So
Friday deployment.
so we're YOLOing Friday, and now what we're doing is we're deploying. And so this is a lot of this common stuff you'll see. So this is just a very classic. It's taking tabular editor and it's deploying it. Running some PowerShell scripts to download tabular editor, and then here you go. It's deploying the BIM file. Because I wanted a rollover, there is some nuance here where I'm actually saving as an artifact. So Azure DevOps has this component of artifacts. So you can save as an artifact, and I can utilize that BIM file later on. While this is going, though, and you guys can correct me, but another shout out to Tabular Editor in all its wonder is, TMDL is obviously very popular right now too, but I guess back in the day, the save to folder, which with the JSON structure, is a lifesaver for development. So naturally, when we're saying building the BIM file, building the model, we're taking that save to folder concept and we're putting it into one giant JSON file, that BIM file. And I think, because of when I was looking at it, that this concept of serializing the BIM file, I think is native to Tabular Editor too. I think they were the ones that kind of popularized it, because I don't see it really anywhere else, and that's why I'm saying that. But it's been I think they created it, so it's a lifesaver too. Because if you can imagine, instead of dealing with one file with your team, you're dealing with however a file for every measure, a file for every column. So it makes dealing with conflicts a lot easier, and a lot less likely. So, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
No, I'm just agreeing with you. I remember seeing the initial conflicts and being like, how would you ever tell what actually changed? Because
those, and to the fabric deployment pipelines, you can see the that one giant BIM file, and like sometimes having to scroll just kills me when you're in there, and that's where it's like, okay, I'm done scrolling. But anyways, so it's now gone through and it just did a lot. So I'll take a step back. So we've deployed, and then it went in. So the deployment was successful, and it's like, hey, Curtis, you deployed on a Friday and your BPA failed. What's going on? So it did refresh the tables, and this is a selfish plug for PyTabular. So this used PyTabular.
So Curtis, hold on a second. What is PyTabular?
I'm so glad you asked, Chris. It is an open source Python package to connect to Power BI semantic models via Python.
nice.
It's now an old geezer compared to some of the other stuff that's come out with SymPy. But this is very useful, especially when you're in a Windows VM in the DevOps world with Tabular Editor. So you can really, it's taking, like, if you want to run DAX queries, if you want to refresh models, things like that, where it's really just like model.query and then your DAX query. It's model.table.refresh. And I tried to make it the term is like Pythonic. So here's some examples in the code.
So wait a minute. I think I saw a timestamp on one of these from 4 years ago. How the other tools for managing tabular models with Python are only like 18 months old. How is it possible that you've been doing this for like 4 or 5 years?
Well, the truth is, Chris, I think what happened here was, honestly, my computer was too slow to open up Power BI Desktop at the time. And so I got so fed up with it, and I'm a big Python fan, that I wanted a way to work with my model outside of Power BI Desktop. And so and then the rest is history. It started, honestly, PyTabular started as like a way to like zip and unzip the PBIX files and see what kind of stuff is in there. And then it kind of morphed into this through time.
Well, necessity is the mother of all invention. So very excited. I will say, we showed this to Microsoft 4.5 years ago because I'm like, Microsoft, you have to come up with a Python package or look at this Python package for managing a tabular model. And at that point in time, they thought the only reason for using Python and a tabular model was to have Python extract data out of a tabular model for data science. They hadn't thought about the management of it. And well done, Curtis. Great job
Thank
with
you.
this. So
Yeah, I think Python they teach to kindergartners these days. So it's really, it helps bridge the gap of dealing with the models. Otherwise, like if you're on Win, you're likely going to be in API conundrums, or you're going to be in some .NET, C# nonsense, which I try to avoid. So being able to simplify it to just say, model.tables, get values and stuff like that. Very classic Pythonic style. Helps bridge the gap a lot too, because you're oftentimes, your organization, that semantic model layer may be in limbo of ownership, and oftentimes the data engineering gets that end of it, and so the data engineers are like, give me
don't
some
understand.
Spark. Yeah, I want
Yeah.
to live in Spark. Let me do that, and then you're like, write the C#, connection, and then so being able to say like, hey, here's some Python, and they go, great, I can deal with that. So at the end of their pipelines, right, they just say .refresh, and they're going to town. So that's kind of the where it happened, and I do use it a lot in pipelines. It's just very easy to get up and running if you want to do things like refreshes and queries. Even to a good use case is, you can impersonate users in the query. So you just add an argument of the email address you want to impersonate, and then you're off to the races. So you can for loop that sucker and just run through every query of every single person if you wanted to, and to check the security.
So
Nice.
let me summarize some of the things that you just ran through at breakneck speed. So number one,
Right.
you can refresh your model.
Mm-hmm.
You can refresh a table or set of tables. You can programmatically refresh a partition or set of partitions from your date from within PyTabular, right? So, for example, if I had a large model and I only wanted to refresh the partitions on my model where data had changed, and I want to go back and look across all time and realize what maybe days changes have occurred, I could write a query in Python to do that evaluation, and then pass that through as the results set from that data frame as parameters into PyTabular to just refresh those very specific objects. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that's
Holy
much
cow.
faster and more powerful than
Right.
the existing option. Yeah.
Because if you think too, like, you'll very quickly, if you're growing, which is great, your model will likely reach a point where you don't always want to refresh the entire model.
Right.
And so you need to be able to segment it out and say, like, I need just these partitions after these pipelines, or just these tables, or just this star, because we all follow star schema perfectly. So being able to, do that, you can do model.tables.find facts. So like there's ways to get, and then .refresh. So I try to chain it to make it intuitive in the design.
Well, that is awesome. I'm also going to call out the thing you hit on in there, which is impersonate user. Why is that super useful? Well, if you have a model with highly complex row level security on it that is potentially externally facing to customers, or where you have legal contractual obligations for protection of data, a breach there could be significant in nature. You could, as Curtis is saying, you could create a set of tests that test out individual role or each of the roles inside of your model. So if you have, let's say, 100 roles and really complex RLS requirements, you could test that out through PyTabular at every run, at every load, or on a set schedule for auditability to make sure that you don't have violations. Is that right, Curtis?
That's correct. And I use that a lot for the RLS checks. It's a lifesaver. I always try to think of post deployment. What am I checking, or what am I being asked to check, or what am my end users checking, and just try to scale that out. So I don't have to waste my time in Excel doing all that stuff. And then B, the end users can rest easy, where I can now go to them like, hey, every time we deploy, heck, every time we refresh, we're checking this. You get a little more complex in the refresh with Pytabular, but there is a native functionality to do a pre and a post check. So by default, when you refresh Pytabular, it just checks that rows were refreshed, but you can customize that if you wanted to. It's its own class in the package.
Wow.
Where you want to check a sales number or something like that. Right now, I just check because at the time, the environment was doing a lot of truncates and loads, and the refreshing was disjointed. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to always pre and post check that there's actually data after my refreshes.
Well, that's
Good idea.
fantastic test.
Like I said,
right?
we all load our data perfectly. I'm sure, but in the cases where you are still truncating and loading, how do you just check it? So,
Well, and I mean, there is legitimate challenges that sometimes occur where your pipelines run quote unquote correctly, but at the end of the run, there's zero data, right? Because something upstream changed, right? Like, oh, all the product names changed or whatever it is, right? And so your product dimension changed, but none of your fact tables changed, right? Or your historical fact tables didn't change. So now there's just no data coming out because of that, right? And this can help you detect when that's occurred, even though everything's been successful. This validates that it's actually successful, right?
and in the event, right, that the data is bad, it's a much better conversation with your end users to say like, hey, we found this issue before you guys saw it. We're on it. We're trying to fix it. Versus them going to you and be like, what the heck? What the heck, Curtis? My data's gone.
Right.
It's gone. So what are you going to do about it? It's just a better conversation. It's a better relationship.
Sure. Well, and because it's in Python and because you've got it in DevOps, that means you can automatically do things like create tickets and I would imagine even potentially post to an outage board or an issue log and actually do things to track this, right?
Correct. Yep.
That's awesome.
And I can imagine in a
Armando,
Fabric environment, you could write those somewhere, and then you could display them for maybe a manager if you're lead of a team to be able to have that single pane of glass of knowing what's going on in your environment.
I love that. That's a great call out. Armando has a great question here. We kind of hit on this. He said, how does Pytabular compare to Semantic Link? And besides Pytabular being around for 5 years, where Semantic Link's only been around for 18 months or so, what other differences are there, or do you know, Curtis?
So one is Pytabular is exclusive to Windows. So that is the one, just the way it was designed originally. And I don't have the ambition to make it work on all operating systems. If someone else does, bless you, please. It's open source. But so that's where, like, if you're in Fabric itself, Semantic Links, definitely, in my opinion. Even I use it, though I'm biased towards Pytabular. Outside of that, there is the age difference. And then I don't know if you guys have any other thoughts on it, but to me, it's really the operating system. I'm already in Windows with Tabular Editor, so it kind of fits for me just to quickly utilize Pytabular, especially in the DevOps world.
Well, that's a great call out. Awesome. All right, you had some more things you wanted to show us, yes?
Yes. So here we've got it. It went through all the steps. The post deployment did fail as we said it would. So that's the That's my trick with demos. Is it fails and I say that's was planned. So it did. So what this did, this stuff you're seeing here, is I incorporated another Python package, which I'm biased towards. I do love it. It's called PyTest. Here's the link to it: pytest.docs.pytest.org. It's the learning curve is a little steep, but once you're off to the races, it does a great job, and it's a great way to scale your test. But I connect that with Pytabular, and then I am running checks on the model. I'm running like certain things like, does this DAX query work? I can run, are my sales number correct? Do my columns have data? Things like that. And I'm just at scale running so many DAX queries in the background to say like, okay, does everything check out? And it failed. So it failed, and it did the same thing again where it published the results. And then so now you notice we were looking at, let me make this a little smaller. We were looking at BPA down here. We had 5 fail, and now we had PyTest results failing as well.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's all in the same spot. You can start to see a summary. You can click into the test. These tests right now are like dummy tests, but you can make them to, PyTest has a great error messaging way so you can kind of build dynamic errors to give more insight to the end user. So the use case here too is not just like of like deployments, but where this was very helpful in the past is branch policies. So if you've got a team on the other side of the planet or different time zones, being able to have a branch policy where they submit the PR and all these checks run and they're getting that immediate feedback versus a whole day wasted. These kind of things is where you can really save a ton of time. And then by the time you do come to review a PR, you can rest easy knowing certain things were checked. And then your pull request discussions are much more valuable, right? The classics is like arguing on uppercase or lowercase with SQL, like stop that, run a test, just pick one. And then the discussion with the engineers is like, why did you write it this way? Or what made you do this join? It's just
Why
so
are you
much
doing
better.
spaces instead of tabs?
Yeah. Those kind of things.
Can't we sort the tab spaces out with linting?
Yes. And being able to like put that in here and run these tests. So it did all that. It ran the test. We mainly override. Now we got to recover. And that's what this step does. And it goes through and it says, it pulls up an old artifact. In this case, I specified a specific branch as my recovery branch, but you've got flexibility here. And this is basically just the same as the deploy model job, but it's just with a different artifact. And so the journey was, it's Friday. So I was like, let's deploy anyways. And then the post deployment was like, Curtis, you're so dumb, right? And so it rolled it back for me, and then it was able to recover. So nothing was felt at most. It looks like we had a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes of downtime for the end user. So versus all of that, if you can imagine being manual, if you could imagine too, like having to wait for the end user to tell you something was wrong, all these different things to save time and face. But that is the DevOps journey. That concludes my my fun little section. I can share the code if you want to I can start to screen share that to kind of explain all the steps, but that's the show.
I mean, that is just fantastic. So you can even recover when there's a failure, roll back to something that's good and fantastic. I'm going to ask a question of you, Curtis, that I think the answer is going to be no. I know Pytabular, or I'm sorry, I know Semantic Link Labs doesn't do this. I believe Pytabular doesn't do this either, but maybe we could just talk through this. One of the things that's possible with semantic models is the ability to back up the cached data in the semantic model to ADLS. The advantage there is you can back that up and then potentially restore that if there's an issue with the build or an issue with the process. Does PyTabular do that as part of its build, or is that something that would have to be added in order for that to function and work?
It would have to be added. I mean, when we were building, all that was all tabular editor.
Yeah.
In this example. So all the building is just natively with tabular editor. PyTabular does have some functionality that integrates with tabular editor. So if you didn't want to write a PowerShell script to download tabular editor, you could do PyTabular has a default.
Well, hang on a second here. I want to be clear. I'm talking about the data that's in the model, right? So like that, that customer table that's 40 gigs, right? That really large customer table that's unfortunately 200 columns wide and has a couple images in there or something, like breaks all of the no, you can't do that, but rules, but it has to have that for whatever crazy situation you have.
Yeah.
Are you able to back up that table with no?
Not easily. No.
Not easily? Okay.
Yeah. So for smaller, and I don't recommend this in production, but there is the ability to, with PyTabular, because every DAX query will output a pandas data frame. And so you can run that DAX query, get that pandas data frame, and then in theory, there's a function where you can convert that pandas data frame to a table. And then you could deploy that. But I would not, because I haven't used that at scale. I think you'd be safe to use it with like a 4x4 table if you wanted to for fun.
Okay.
But yeah, to your point, Chris, it does not do that.
So the reason I ask, Belinda's asking, why would you want to do such of a thing, right? It's in the instance where you have a 160 gig model where you have a few very large objects inside of that model. And, okay, the refresh of that model is a 48-hour refresh, right? Which is a long time to do a complete refresh. Maybe you time it out for twice a year on a 3-day weekend or something along those lines. But you have a big code push that you need to do that's going to fundamentally change some of those components inside your models. You're going to push it, refresh it, then run some data validations and realize, oh crap, my big change didn't work, wasn't successful. How do I restore to the previous version, right? That's what that backup and restore would allow you to do, is you'd be able to back up that 160 gigs into an ADLSG2 bucket and then restore from that if you found that there was an issue with your build. So it's not a feature yet, but it is possible to do those things. So, all right. I didn't know if you'd encountered that or had to go through that process as of yet. Maybe I'm one of a handful of 7 people on the planet that's had to do that in the past. So maybe it's just
call me crazy, Chris, but I'm always making copies of Power BI reports before. I'm like, you know what? I've just got a copy of it. I'm just ready if I need to go back.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I honestly, we're just talking ADLSG2. So storage is not like what storage once was, right? So to me, it would make sense if you had a load process, okay, I'm going to do a deployment. First thing, kick off the function to back up the model, right? You're then going to deploy it. You're going to run through all the tests, do all the stuff, right? And then you're going to do the refresh. You're going to run through and do all the tests. And if at the end of it, you go, oh crap, it's all garbage, script in the rollback should not just be the model, but add the actual data that goes along with the model. And then you'd be sitting pretty, right? Semantic Link Labs doesn't do that either. So
and honestly, a lot of the deployment stuff doesn't, because it's all metadata focused. So when you're running into those kind of scenarios, you do need to code for it.
Yeah.
Or manually back stuff up. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and Gary's calling out that this is like a great
Yeah.
tool for advanced DevOps teams. And this, he's right, and this is an advanced topic, but just because it's an advanced topic doesn't mean this isn't something that lots of teams could take advantage of, right? Like Curtis, you said a lot of this stuff could be really helpful if you have two people working with these tools, right?
Yeah, and
And
in
go
the
ahead.
adoption of like DevOps in general too. Like if it's two end user like business users that are coming from Excel, maybe not. But they're going to have growing pains, right? The minute you have more than one in the same model, you start to interact that. So, but if you've got two engineers, for sure, that are doing pull requests, like getting them in there, and then two, even if it's just one, if you start to counteract that with the examples you guys were giving, like the incident sniff test or like the vacation test, like being able to say like, does my model need to be sustainable? And that's where it's worth it, even if you're a team of one, just to say like, just to run those tests. Because otherwise, after every deployment, if you don't have this, everybody's got their checklist. They're those staple reports you go and look at, and you're like, okay, is everything good? Did everything load? Just being able to scale that, it can save so much time.
And that's where it comes down to, I think, is you need a break point in yourself to reach that you're like, okay, it's worth it now. Or I've seen even teams where you need one person passionate about it. If you don't have that, then it's never going to happen. Like a consultant can come in and say it all day long, but you need somebody who owns it.
Right.
Yeah. Because there's like if the adoption isn't there, especially for like end users, I tend to try not to force it. I think maybe to Jared's point, the incident test is what would force it versus like a something that's maybe a little, because the Fabric deployment pipelines, while not perfect, are great. Like I do enjoy them, especially for end users, just to get them up and running. And like, while I'm not a fan of looking at that compare with that entire BIM file for semantic models, but it does make it so you can at least separate environments out, right? And scale that with your reporting. And it took me a while to get it configured correctly every now and then, but it can, go from, a dev lake house to a test lake house to a prod lake house. It can do all that for you natively built in. So that's not to discount what's already out there today, especially if you want to get up and running quick.
Yeah, no, I agree, right? And you're really talking about like, as Christina said, what is your capabilities, and are you looking to move beyond what the platform natively supports and has, right? And if you can use the platform for, if it's you and another guy like helping you out, like, hey, stick in the platform, don't go as advanced as what we're talking about here. But when you start to get scale, like we talked about, and your companies are starting to make $1 million decisions on your analytics and your reports, suddenly it makes a lot of sense to invest time and energy in making sure that not only is your data right, but it's always right, and you have line of sight into it always being right. Like, running successfully does not necessarily mean you've got the right data in your model all the time, right? I mean, it's right for the code, but it might not be the right for the business. And being able to get that line of sight is super important.
And you need to be responsible, right? At the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. Like,
right.
You need to be able to hold yourself accountable.
Yeah. Yep. All right. So Curtis, I'm going to ask you for like your tips, because we're near the end of the time here. I'm going to go Curtis for what your tips are for someone to get started, and what would you recommend for like step one. And then when I get done with that, I'm going to go to Jared for the final words. So, want to make sure that we're aware that's what's going on here. Okay. So Curtis, if someone wanted to get started with advanced DevOps and start to like work in this space, where should they start?
If you haven't started in Tabular Editor command line, I think in the semantic modeling world, that's definitely a place to start, and being able to understand what it can do and how flexible it is. And then after that, it would just be getting into Azure DevOps pipelines and have some fun with some YAML files and test. So it's like, can you even just get it to run? Start there. But the YAML syntax, getting used to that, getting used to the Azure DevOps structure in the schema, that's where I'd start.
Okay, fantastic. And I'm going to put in a little plug here in the chat for Tabular Editor Learn. They've got a great program to get you up to speed on Tabular Editor, as well as the CLI, the command line interface. There's a training in there, so do check that out. They've also got blogs and stuff like that. So, do look there. All right. Awesome. Okay, Jared, parting words.
All right, random wisdom here. No, actually targeted. So, I mean, clearly, like, we've talked a very large gambit of, like, just very simple approaches to handling DevOps, more advanced situations. Like, no matter where you are at in your organization, you've got some sort of need for it, unless, like, you're working in a vacuum. In those situations, where do you start this journey? Anywhere in there, but you got to kind of fit what makes sense. And at least here, Curtis, this architecture, I think, really gives a great idea of what does that super advanced, great, once you get it set up, very simple approach to manage all of this. That's the future that you want to search for. And it's still on the same principles that, regardless of where you're at with tech, it's still those same basic principles. How do we avoid the issues that we don't see when we're writing our code? How do we make sure we can go back if going forward breaks things, so that on that Friday when somebody decides, for better or for worse, to do that deployment, you've got a plan and you're not going to break prod. We joke about it, but that's a genuine need. So start where you are at today, and it's a learning curve. Just learn, grow, and someday we'll all be like Curtis and doing super awesome deployments all the time.
All right. Awesome. Thank you, Jared. Thank you, Curtis, for all the hard work you've done Tabular and showing us how to work with this stuff. This is fantastic. We really appreciate that effort. Creating a common repo that others can use to take advantage of that is a huge boon to the entire world, honestly, because I know there are a number of companies that are leveraging your tool to help manage their models. So this is absolutely fantastic. And well, Christina too. Everyone, thank you, and thank you guys. Thank you for joining us today on Fabric Fridays. Really excited to have you here. Gosh, it's like I'm brand new to this. We've got we're back. We're full on Fabric Fridays every Friday. We're going to be here 7:30 to 8:30 Central Time. We're going to be talking with different people about different topics. Next week, Mim is going to be on, and we're going to be talking about performance testing and validation. And honestly, I'm super excited to talk with Mim live with you guys and have that conversation. If you're not familiar with Mim, he does incredible work when it comes to testing and performance stuff. But we'll be here next Friday with you guys. In the interim, in the meantime, I want you to have the best day ever. Where'd my mouse go? That totally broke the pace.
Oh man, that was a great outro, man.
Yeah, I was doing wonderful, and then all of a sudden I lost everything.
We're going to show Chris how to increase the size of his mouse. Yeah.
He needs a test plan. He didn't have a strategy.
Peace.
Baker Tilly Digital combines strategic industry insight and advanced technical expertise to uncover and solve your digital transformation challenges. If you're interested in learning more, check out our website at bakertilly.com/digital.